From Mantic Games, makers of Kings of War, comes Terrain Crate. That's right, Dungeon Depths. This huge box filled with 73 pieces comes with an amazing array of dungeon paraphernalia, just ripe for use in all the stuff that we make. There's all kinds of excellent little goodies in this box, and you will just be amazed at some of the quality that's coming out right here as we unbox this. Now, the fascinating thing is these trays that they've actually got where everything fits in, so it's great for transportation. Everything has its own little place, and this little bag has all the little fiddly bits in it. So let's have a look at what's in here. This great gyroscopic wizard type thing. A cupboard and shelves equipped with skulls, books, and a wizard's hat. And of course, there's this magical font you can use for casting spells while you recline in this wing-back chair. Just look at the details in that. And of course, you wouldn't have a dungeon without an Iron Maiden or an Egyptian sarcophagus where you can store that very same dead dude lying there on the floor. And then you have a wizard's amount of chests filled with maps, scrolls, and all manner of other traveling wizardy type things. Could be a necromancer. And if you vanquish the bad guys, or you just happen upon their lair, there may be a massive pile of armor and weapons just waiting to be looted. There's lots of great little pieces of furniture, like this little freestanding mirror, which is excellent for little bits of pieces around the dungeon. Don't forget, of course, large treasure piles, a big thing of coins with a chest on top, or just a standard massive pile of coins. This is a 2 by 2 inch square, so is the other one, and these are just little 1 inch square little piles of treasure. Oh, what's in that box? And you can't go wrong with my personal favorite, the stretching rack. Now, you've got to have torture equipment in your dungeon, and I thoroughly recommend a good stretching rack. And once they've let go of their mortal coil, you can stick them in this beautiful coffin and lid. Fascinating. Of course, they'll come back from the dead as they usually do as a mummy or a zombie, but this definitely a mummy. And then you can, of course, get out your torture chamber stuff and begin to do medical experiments with the little tray of medical pieces sticking on there. Lots of things designed for cover, like this pile of logs that goblins are going to use for a cooking fire. These are difficult to craft, so thankfully they've produced one large thing of barrels, and in one of the other items you can get off their website, you can actually buy pieces with lots of barrels in them, and of course crates, which are also difficult to do. You get an individual crate, and then there's dungeon detritus just lying around. There, of course, some rubble and some more trash that's fallen from the roof by the looks of it, and broken barrels and crates. Now, you'll see some of the pieces may be a little bit warped, so you'll probably have to use some warm water to bend it back into shape. But look at these beautiful little chairs, wonderful pieces. These will definitely be used heavily in my games. Of course, you can't go wrong with a rope ladder, because you've got to get from level 5 to level 4, you know where. Freestanding braziers on poles, and of course, what would a dungeon be without wooden tables and benches? You've got to have those. And of course, nice 1 inch square trap tiles. These can be used basically in D&D or any board game that has these kind of things in it as well. And of course, cover them up with this runner carpet. There's lots of little things in the bag, like the pedestal you see there, the little chairs, the owl on the pedestal. There's a lever, a bag of money, plates, goblets, potion bottles, skulls. There's 2 skulls. There's some kind of monster's claws and a map, a crown on a pillow, and lastly, for the wall, you have a tapestry and either a painting or a mirror. Everything has been pre-assembled for you. Don't need to put anything together, but you may need to just clear off some of the flashing from the molding process if you're going to be painting these up. And speaking about painting them up, you can go and visit their website after you've witnessed me paint up a couple of items from the box. We're going to do this stretching rack, and I'm going to do this coffin as well, and we're going to just show you how you can do this with absolutely no artistic skill whatsoever. And you're just going to get some yellow craft paint and a flat rectangular brush and rub off some of the yellow paint and then liberally apply as a dry brush. Now, this will bring out all the detail, as you can see here, and begins to change the color. So I'm going to do the same thing with the coffin and its lid, and then we're going to move on to the next stage, which is, of course, to take this back a little bit. So we're going to grab some black ink, and I'm using a plastic lid so that we can mix in. And I also use this for other things, but we'll get to that when we do some more advanced painting a little bit further on. So then we just mix in 1-to-1 ink and water, and then liberally apply the black ink and water mixture all over the entire piece and set aside to dry. Do the same thing with the coffin and the lid. Get inside the coffin there, make sure you've hit all the areas around, and then set aside. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to be painting one of the treasure piles, and I just wanted to show you the color wheel. We're going to use a yellowy orange and also a blue violet. Now, the blue violet is the contrast to yellow orange, so this blue is going to be the base coat that I'm going to spray onto the treasure pile. This may seem a little bit strange. I'm using a heavily watered down paint because I'm going to now dab away the surface and allow the paint to remain inside all the grooves, the blue paint. Then I'm going to spray it with yellow paint, also heavily watered down, and that's just going to give us some variation in the color around the piece and dab off a little bit of that yellow paint once I'm finished putting it on. As you can see here, just using a little bit of toilet paper and dabbing off excess yellow paint. Then I'm going to be using miniature yellow paint. I thinned it down a little bit, and now I'm going to touch all the main top-facing coins and treasure bits that are in there. So I basically was painting it, looking at it from the top, so that I'm not painting into the grooves, and that gives you a sense of shadow underneath. I know it looks a lot less like treasure at this point, but trust me, we're getting much further along, and this is obviously a little bit more advanced than what we were doing with the others. So now I'm mixing some brown ink and water, and I'm going over the entire piece as a wash. So I'm just going to go over everything, get into the grooves, the whole lot, over the coins, over all the little bits and pieces of treasure, and just cover it all. Get into all the little holes and nooks and crannies and everything. So here we have it with the wash applied, and you can then use, wait for it to dry a little bit, but I'm just testing to see if the drying on the rack is finished yet, using a paper towel to just see where we're at, but it's still got a little bit of time to go. So I'm just dabbing on the treasure pile there to get rid of some of the excess of that wash, and now I'm using some bronze. You can also use copper, metallic paint, and I'm watering that down quite a lot, as you can see. And now I'm going to basically wash over the top of all the highlighted areas with this bronze, watered down bronze paint. So this is going to start to give everything a sheen, and it's going to give it that metallic look. Obviously now it's starting to look quite brown, and I'm actually drying off this paint with my airbrush. There's no paint or anything in the airbrush. I'm using the pressure of the air to quickly dry the paint. Then I'm going to dry brush on some yellow. I've switched brushes. I'm just using a cheap soft brush that's heavily mangled. You notice I'm not using any kind of special brushes. These are old brushes that I've had for many years. I'm not doing any sort of high detail work. So I've dry brushed with the yellow here, and you can start to see the details starting to pop out, and we've still got the sheen from that bronze. So now I'm going to just hit some of the raised areas with some of that yellow, just to bring it out and highlight where the light is going to be falling, most likely on some of the coins, going over those and making sure that we've got some good yellow highlights there. So now I'm going to mix together a little bit of white paint, and I'm just going to touch a few corner areas that would be extreme highlights. Obviously gold is highly reflective, and it will reflect light, and we just want to have that sort of sparkly look about it. So that's where I'm using white, and we're going to do a little bit of a secret thing later on as a bit of an experiment. Once again, I'm drying with the airbrush just to get that paint dried fast, because you know I'm a lazy person. I don't like waiting for things. And now I'm mixing some of that watered down bronze with the yellow and some of the white. And I'm going to now again go over the top of where I've highlighted and wash over that with the lighter bronze mix. As you can see, everything is now popping quite well on this piece. And this is a multi-layered, multifaceted way of doing it. Again, drying each time with the airbrush. And I'm just checking against my ring here to see where we're at. We've still got a little bit to go, and we've got to bring this bright color down a bit. So what we're going to do after we've dry brushed a little bit more with some yellow is we're going to apply a dark wash. But we're not going to use black. We're going to go back to our original blue, which may seem a little bit strange, but blue is the high contrast to the yellow that we're using. So once we've got all these highlights and everything done, the wash will allow us to create really good contrasts. And once again, after I'm applying all these yellows and everything, I am drying with the airbrush. So now I'm heavily watering down the high flow acrylic blue that I use for airbrushing. And I'm mixing in a little bit of the brown ink wash, and I'm also going to mix in a little bit of the bronze as well. So this blue is going to become a grey blue, sort of a mid-tone grey blue, and then I'm going to use that to then wash over the whole piece into all the little crevices and everything. And I'm controlling it. I'm using a small brush to control where it's going, and I'm trying to leave some of the peak parts untouched. And we're going to do something a little bit strange after this. So once we've washed all this, I'm going to dab off a lot of the excess wash with this paper towel or tissue paper, and then I'm going to start rubbing it. So you'll see here, just start rubbing, and that's going to, it's almost like polishing the gold. It really just pops out. Sorry about the angle of the camera here. That will basically bring out all the little coins and everything like that and leave the blue color in the recesses. So once we've got all that done, we're going to once again do a dry brush with yellow to just make it pop one more time. Again, nice, brilliant pop there, as you can see the contrast between the two. And then again, I'm creating a wash with the original copper bronze paint. And I'm just going to go over some, but not all of the piece. So just where it's needed, just to get that shine back. And so the metallic paint, once dry, keeps it nice and glossy. And I'm just a very, very light yellow dry brush on the top. And now we're going to prepare for the ultra secret little experiment that we're going to be doing. And you know me, we've always got to make it a little bit magical by using glitter. That's right. I'm going to try to use glitter and some of this quick dry PVA glue. So I'm just going to use a dollop of PVA glue and a toothpick, and I'm just tapping on little areas just randomly placed around where there would be some light that hits the gold coins and that sort of thing, just with this quick drying PVA. It does dry pretty quickly, so I've got to do this with haste. And I'll just dump the gold little circle glitter onto the top of that, and then pour over the excess onto the top of it again, and then tap off the rest of the gold, and then wipe off any excess and blow off the rest with the airbrush. And now I'm going to just use a little bit of that bronze copper wash to just go over those little bits and flecks of glitter, and you can see as I'm moving it around the glint that you see, which is really nice little glint that happens on the gold. Now just finishing off the rack and the coffin, just again doing a dry brush with yellow paint, and we'll now see the difference, what everything looks like. So this is the torture rack, and this is it with the very basic paint and wash, and you can see it makes it look nice and old and decrepit, which is great for any dungeon. And this is what the coffin is going to look like when you use that technique. Now, of course, we went to great lengths to adjust the gold. That is a more intermediate level of painting. I'm by no means a professional painter or miniature painter or anything like that. This is just my way of experimenting with strange ways of painting stuff. I'd like to thank Mantic for their support of this channel. They sponsored this video, and they have also sponsored the other Tabletop Crafters Guild Guildmasters, and they've also sponsored other people in the terrain building community. So I thank them for all the support that they do give this community, and I hope that you like this product. I definitely do, and I will be using it.